Peace and long life. Good science fiction greeting, though slightly out of place because today, many problems, but one key problem I want to talk about today, the problem in Star Wars, the problem with Anakin Skywalker. There are a lot of Star Wars fans like me that grew up with the original trilogy, that loved Star Wars, that had the toys, read the comics, read the books later, played, pretended to be Star Wars characters, you name it. The prequels, I am one of them that was terribly disappointed by the prequels. But to be clear, the prequels, though we love to fight about them as Star Wars nerds, they don't actually break the canon of Star Wars. They do push it to the very edge extreme. They challenge all of our expectations about what we thought was going to be occurring in ways that are extraordinarily stupid, silly, and unsatisfying, but they don't actually contradict. No better example than Anakin Skywalker. We hear about Anakin Skywalker, of course, in the original trilogy. We find out that he is Darth Vader, that nice, wonderful, shocking moment. Obi-Wan talks about Anakin. Everything that we get about Anakin, you put it in your head, you have this idea of who Anakin is. We see a little glimpse of him without his helmet right before he perishes as Darth Vader. He's come back to the good side. We get to see his Force ghost, this beautiful moment where you see he repented before it was too late and he has Jedi salvation. He's there with Obi-Wan and Yoda. We get a glimpse of him. We don't see a lot of him, but this redemptive cycle has come full turn. The guy who betrayed the Jedi has repented. He's now with them in the afterlife as a Force ghost, being a Jedi. It's just... Now, what we knew about Anakin was very sparse, but we know Obi-Wan said, when I first met your father, he was already a great pilot. I was astounded how strongly the Force was with him. They fought together during the Clone Wars. This fires the imagination and makes you think about what all these things mean. And then you get the prequels, and it's just stupid. Nothing that is said about Anakin being a great pilot indicates for a split second that he's like 5 years old, but somehow a pod racer on Tatooine, and this is what Obi-Wan meant. How when I first met your father, he was already a great pilot. I was surprised. Again, technically, yeah, okay. It's really weird that he meant the 5-year-old kid that pod raced. I know people accuse us of bullying. I have no problem with the kid who did the acting. It was a dumb idea to write that. How does this work? The Clone War thing is all related. You went to war against clones, except in this version, the clones are on your side. All of us thought as kids, the obvious thing was clones had been used to infiltrate the society. There was a war against these clones being used to try to take power by masquerading as people. Somehow or another, losing the Clone War meant that the collapse of society brought about the Empire. But that's completely off base. It has nothing to do with that. And that's fine. Again, you're challenging people's expectations. And it was kind of cool that the stormtroopers turned out to be clones. But that was not what you thought when they flew together in the Clone Wars. Me and your dad, you were not picturing the 5-year-old kid and then the snotty teenager that you got. There's just nothing. They never did explain at all how Princess Leia is a princess. I mean, we figured that Bail Organa was like the king of Alderaan, but he's not. He's a senator. But then her mother was a queen, Amidala, but then we find out that that position was elected and she's not a queen later. Not really clear how Leia ends up a princess because, again, stupid follow-up. The prequels fill in the blanks in a way that doesn't fully fill in the blanks and doesn't make any sense in some instances. But again, technically speaking, does it directly break canon? No, not the way Disney has done. Not the way Disney has, not just by butchering the characters and undoing everything they learned in the previous movies, but literally having Leia, who didn't remember Obi-Wan, suddenly runs around with Obi-Wan, who didn't know she was a Jedi, knows she was a Jedi, who didn't know about the Force, the power I could never have, but she does. I won't go down that road. But the problem of Anakin Skywalker then is part of this canon stretch. So you're like, oh my gosh, so this is this kid? And that was bad enough. And then we got the Hayden Christensen version. I've heard rumors that he's a fine actor. I think I saw My Life as a House years ago, but I was still drinking then. And really the only other thing I remember seeing him in are the Star Wars prequels. The way Anakin is portrayed in the rest of those two sequels is horrible. He's always shifty and snotty and arrogant, and he always has that look in his eye like he can't wait to switch to evil. And I have people tell me, well, that's the character. Like, no, the way we pictured the betrayal of Darth Vader, the way Obi-Wan talks about his long-lost friend Anakin in A New Hope, you really get the sense of how much he loved the guy. They were close. They were brothers. And the sudden betrayal of him becoming Vader and the way that this plays out. And yeah, they say that, right? Ewan McGregor's character says that to Hayden Christensen by the end of Revenge of the Sith. You were like my brother. But that's totally not true. It's not what we actually saw unfold on screen. Nothing about Anakin seemed like how Amidala wanted him is really a mystery, because he comes across as a shifty, diabolical, snot-nosed brat that can't wait to do things his own way because he's so arrogant. There's nothing appealing about this guy. And he's always back-talking, mouthing off, challenging Obi-Wan. Everything we see does not add up to, you were like my brother. How could you do this? The Anakin we got was a guy where you'd be like, oh yeah, he's totally going to the dark. Oh yeah, he's totally going to the dark side. The fear in the boy, was sort of the premonition, the foreshadowing. But the moment we met Hayden Christensen's older version, we're like, oh dude, he's no good. If you're going to pick one guy not to trust within the Jedi Order, it was him. Even if you didn't know the other trilogy, right? Assuming you're in that universe and you don't know he's going to be Vader, you wouldn't trust him to do nothing. The Jedi Council, to their credit, is quite suspicious of the situation. But none of it adds up to, we were brothers, we fought together in the Clone Wars, he was like my brother, and then he betrayed us. And because this is the problem with Anakin Skywalker. The age difference between them, and I don't know if it's because they wanted the kid to be 5 years old at the beginning. We assume there's some kind of age difference, maybe, because Obi-Wan trained Anakin, thought he could train him as good as Yoda, which is the other canon problem. There was no Qui-Gon Jinn. Yoda was Obi-Wan's master. Not prequels, he's not. I mean, he kind of sort of is because he's on the council, and maybe he did before Qui-Gon. You can stretch this, but really that's not what you were expecting that to mean. Like, the clear meaning of that in the original is not this in the prequel, but technically, does it directly contradict? No. So we end up with an Anakin Skywalker that is much younger, but that didn't necessarily have to be so. We imagined that they met during the Clone Wars, fighting whatever the evil clone threat was. They were pilots. Maybe Anakin didn't know he had the power of the Force. Obi-Wan finds him. He's a couple years younger, maybe, but Obi-Wan is teaching him because Obi-Wan is a Jedi and Anakin was not yet. That's why the teacher-student relationship, the master-Padawan relationship, not because of this huge age difference. And that's borne out by the original trilogy. When we see what's left of Anakin Skywalker, he's a mess. But when we see him at the Force Resurrection, he's appropriately about the same age as Obi-Wan in the Vision. And, unless you've only seen the redone ones, and they're all young again. But anyway, so the expectation is that he's not a little kid. He's closer to age. There ends up being absolutely nothing about Anakin Skywalker. We waited all those years to find out more about Anakin Skywalker if they're going to do prequels like this. And what we got was nothing like anything that we'd imagined or read in the non-canon materials of the comic books or the novels. I'm talking about the early novels, not the later on ones. It was nothing. So yeah, this whole talk in culture about subverting expectations. Well, I'm happy when my expectations are subverted, but only if it's done so well. I did a review on the movie Ice Princess by Disney, which has got a lot of views on my channel for some reason. I love that movie. Everything you're like, oh, I know what this is going to be, and it was nothing like what it was going to be, but it was done well. The Star Wars prequels and the whole problem of Anakin is that, yeah, he does subvert his expectations, but it's done in ways that are so stupid. It's done in ways that are so foolish. And that sort of opens the door for now. Disney has completely thrown out the canon whatsoever. None of it makes any sense, and I'm increasingly convinced that they intended their films to be a reboot of the entire franchise. Instead of doing A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, then prequels the way Lucas did it, they gave us this sequel trilogy, but they're going to get other actors or use CGI, and they're going to go back in time. I think the end of this is going to be redoing A New Hope, Return of the Jedi, and Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, so that the story will be different. It will now mesh with their version, like an alternate reality Kelvinverse starting over. And apparently Leia is going to be the Jedi superwoman like Rey, and we're going to eliminate Luke. Maybe he'll get killed as an adolescent in this timeline, we'll see. But there's no other feasible explanation. I mean, maybe they just don't want one because they just don't care about canon or story, which is also true. Or they're just going to keep fumbling along because they're just going to do it their own way, go back in time and essentially erase that the way they're talking about erasing Indiana Jones with a time travel sequence. So we will see. But this is the problem with Anakin Skywalker, subverting people's expectations, but in such an unsatisfying way that it's written badly, it's directed badly, it's performed badly, it just comes out and unfolds stupidly, and that just paves the way for all of Disney's random shoveling of manure up on a green screen, and wherever it falls, as long as it falls in a feminist, intersectional, and homosexual manner, they're just fine with that, and it opens the door for just more degradation. Star Wars is dead. I see that Film Threat is actually putting them on trial for the murder of Star Wars. I'm looking forward to watching all of that unfold just for kicks, because it's all that we got left. I can't even go back and watch the original trilogy because I can only see the edited version. They have eliminated the original ones. That Anakin Skywalker, I remember, I don't even get to see anymore. He's been Orwellianly disappeared in a Stalinist manner. Live long and prosper.